Let's be honest, at this point, who hasn't used Zoom? We've all been there, for work meetings, online classes, even virtual family holidays. It literally became the digital glue that held the world together. But behind that simple blue icon is an absolutely incredible story that most of us have never heard. And it didn't start in some Silicon Valley garage. It started on a long, slow train ride. See, this wasn't some grand business plan cooked up in a boardroom. This was a daydream. The simple, heartfelt wish of a young college student, Eric Yuan, who was just trying to figure out an easier way to see his long-distance girlfriend. That one thought, born out of a love story, would end up changing everything.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How on earth did that simple daydream become the platform that billions of people now depend on? How did one person's very personal problem become a global solution? All right, let's get into it and find out.
Our story starts way before Silicon Valley, back in 1980s China, and it begins with a challenge that I think a lot of us can understand, a long-distance relationship.
Picture this. You're a college freshman, and to see the person you love, who, by the way, would one day become your wife, you have to take a 10-hour train ride. And it's not a comfortable ride either. It was often so packed that Eric had to stand for the entire 10 hours. And it was right there, in the middle of that exhaustion, that the first seed of an idea was planted. There just had to be a better way.
But before he could even think about building that better way, he had to build a whole new life for himself. And that meant running headfirst into a wall of rejection so high, it would have made most people just give up.
8. Just let that sink in. That's how many times Eric Yuan's application for a U.S. visa was denied. For 2 straight years, he just kept applying, kept refusing to give up on his dream of getting to Silicon Valley to join the internet boom. And on his 9th try, he finally got it.
He eventually landed a job as one of the very first engineers at WebEx, which was the king of video conferencing back then. But as he climbed the ranks at the company, he noticed something deeply wrong. The product was clunky, it was unreliable, and the customers, well, they hated it. They only used it because they had to. And he knew with total certainty that he could build something people would actually love.
So, can you imagine, at 41 years old, with a safe, high-paying executive job and a family to think about, he walked away from it all. He left to build his dream. But when he went to investors to get funding, he hit that same wall of rejection over and over again. More than 40 venture capitalists showed him the door.
And this was the feedback he got time and time again. They'd say the market was already packed. You had giants like Skype, Cisco, Google. Why would anyone need another video tool? But what they just didn't get was the most important part.
You see, Eric Yuan wasn't trying to build just another piece of software with more bells and whistles. His entire mission was guided by one simple, obsessive philosophy that went all the way back to those 10-hour train rides. And this really shows you the difference. On one side, you had the old way, a total mess of required downloads, dropped calls, and constant frustration. Yuan's idea was radical because it was so simple. A video call should just work. One click. That's it. A seamless, reliable connection every single time. With no money for big ad campaigns, how did they grow? Well, the product had to speak for itself. It was so good that its users basically became its sales team. And get this, Yuan himself would personally email customers who canceled their subscriptions to ask them what went wrong. Their masterstroke, though? They targeted universities, knowing that all those students who fell in love with the free version would demand it at their future jobs.
So for almost a decade, Zoom just grew steadily, quietly building this army of happy customers. And then 2020 happened. The world shut down, and overnight, Eric Yuan's little daydream wasn't just a handy tool anymore, it was the essential infrastructure for humanity.
Just look at these numbers. They are absolutely staggering. In December of 2019, Zoom was hitting a peak of about 10 million daily meeting participants. Just 4 months later, that number exploded to over 350 million. That's a 35x jump, practically overnight. The entire planet was suddenly counting on them.
You have to understand, behind the scenes, it was absolute chaos. Yuan and his team were working 24/7, just fighting to keep the lights on against this tidal wave of new users. He knew that if Zoom went down, it wasn't just a tech company failing. The world's classrooms, businesses, and families, they would all be disconnected.
But the company was also facing a crisis on the inside. To keep up with the demand, they had to hire at a dizzying pace, 6,000 new employees in just 18 months.
And that careful, customer-focused culture they'd spent years building, in Yuan's own words, it was completely broken. The irony is pretty stark, right? The tool built to connect the world was struggling to keep its own people connected. So after making it through that global trial by fire, Zoom is now looking toward a completely new frontier. This next chapter isn't just about connecting us, it's about augmenting us, using the incredible power of artificial intelligence.
And at the heart of this new vision is a concept that sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie, the digital twin. Imagine an AI version of you, one that can actually learn how you talk, how you think, and could eventually go to meetings for you. That's where this is all headed.
Now, how do we get there? Well, it's a journey. It starts with the AI companion tools we see today, things that can summarize meetings and help draft emails. That then evolves into a more proactive digital assistant that can handle your schedule. And the final step? A true digital twin, an AI that can act as your proxy, freeing you up to focus on what's important. Yuan believes this could be the innovation that finally ends the 5-day workweek.
So when you look at the whole story, from that 10-hour train ride to a 350 million person video call, the technology has completely transformed, but the motivation, the why behind it all, hasn't changed one bit. Zoom was never about crushing the competition. It was built to solve a very basic, very human problem, our deep need to connect with the people that matter to us.
The story of Zoom really is a powerful reminder that the biggest, most world-changing ideas often start from the most personal places. It shows that having a real, clear purpose matters more than just hype. And it leaves us all with a pretty simple but powerful question to think about. What problem are you trying to solve? Not for the whole world, but for just one person, because sometimes that's where everything begins.